Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully you guys are having a great Thursday. The NHL released their full schedule on Wednesday, and we'll talk all about that in today's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, along with some must-watch games for the 2025-26 NHL season. So make sure that you stay tuned in to this episode until the end. As always, hit that like, subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, any other audio platform, make sure to go follow me on there. Usually, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, I do my episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. But because it's the off season, there's not a lot of hockey going on. I just do my Hockey Talk with TG podcast. You know, like I will try and put out an episode when there's more hockey news to, like discuss. But when the regular season starts, we will go back to our normal routine of putting episodes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. But because it's the off season, it's kind of hard to come up with hockey news and topics to talk about on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So that's why I wait till there's like more hockey news, and I can just put that all in one episode and just talk about it with you guys on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So I just wanted to make that announcement. So when the regular season starts back again, which will be on Tuesday, October the 7th, we will go back to the normal routine of putting out episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But because it's the off season, it's not a lot of hockey going on, then we'll just put out episodes like every blue moon-ish. You guys know what I mean. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into today's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So, as I just discussed, the NHL released their full schedule on Wednesday. We'll recap all of that along with some must-watch games. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll talk about the opening night games. We talked about this on last episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. We'll just talk about it again on this episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast as the NHL released their full schedule. Of course, there's 3 games on opening night. Opening night is on Tuesday, October the 7th. It's going to be a tripleheader on ESPN for opening night of the 2025-26 NHL season, starting with my Chicago Blackhawks taking on the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers at 4:00 p.m. Central Time. Panthers will raise their second Stanley Cup banner. And as a Blackhawks fan, I really can't wait for that because I'm missing hockey right now. And I'm missing Chicago Blackhawks hockey. So can't wait for our first game of the season. The bad part about that is that it has to be against the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, who are a powerhouse team to watch. They're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions for a reason. A lot of key players on that team, and they are the better team. They are most definitely the better team than the Blackhawks. So this could be a one-sided battle, or one-sided battle, if you will. This could go one-sided. Could be the Florida Panthers coming out with the win on opening night against the Blackhawks, which if that happens, wouldn't be surprised. But we'll see if the Blackhawks can pull off an upset and ruin the Panthers' night of raising the Stanley Cup banner and shutting down Seth Jones and the Florida Panthers. The only reason why I said Seth Jones and Florida Panthers because Seth Jones used to play for the Chicago Blackhawks, and he is Chicago's public enemy number one. At least the Blackhawks fans, he's public enemy number one in Chicago because during his time in Chicago, he was playing poorly, wasn't doing as good. He wasn't the Seth Jones that we're used to seeing, and people hated him, wanted him off the team. And when Kyle Davidson made that trade to the Florida Panthers, Spencer Knight, Blackhawks fans, including myself, were ecstatic about that. So the Blackhawks will look to spoil Seth Jones and the Florida Panthers opening night with a win in South Florida. as a Blackhawks fan, highly unlikely that'll happen though. But we'll just see how everything goes. And then the second game following that will be the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the New York Rangers at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Two Metropolitan Division teams going at it. And Mike Sullivan will make his debut as Rangers head coach against his former team, the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think on, October 11th, 4 days later, the Rangers will be heading to the Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I'm pretty sure the Penguins will play a great tribute for Rangers head coach Mike Sullivan, since he coached the Penguins for 10 seasons, and winning the Stanley Cup 2 times with the Penguins, both in 2016 and 2017. So I'm pretty sure Penguins fans miss him a lot in the Steel City. But I think he used to be part of the Rangers coaching staff before. I think at one point he was an assistant coach for the New York Rangers. I don't know when that was, but I think that's what I heard, that he was an assistant coach for the New York Rangers. But not so sure about that. But I think I heard this from somewhere saying that he was an assistant coach for the Rangers at one point. I think under head coach John Tortorella, when John Tortorella was coaching the Rangers at the time. I think Mike Sullivan was an assistant coach. And then the third game of this triple header on ESPN on opening night will be the Colorado Avalanche taking on the LA Kings at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. Two Western Conference teams going at it, and two teams who made the playoffs last year looking to get back into the playoffs this year, and LA Kings are looking to solve their first round struggles against the Edmonton Oilers, because they lost to them for 4 straight years, and they're looking to solve that. Colorado Avalanche are looking to make a run to the Stanley Cup, winning another Stanley Cup since they got their captain Gabriel Landeskog back in the lineup. And again, all these games will be on ESPN and ESPN Plus in the USA, and this will stream on Sportsnet and TVA Sports in Canada. And then we got a TNT doubleheader on October 8th. We got the Boston Bruins taking on the Washington Capitals at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This could be the potential debut of James Higgins, who was drafted by the Boston Bruins, which hopefully we get to see him make his debut. I mean, he played his college hockey at BC College. You had Adam Sandler with his Happy Gilmore persona announcing the pick for the Bruins to draft James Higgins. And James Higgins even said himself that Happy Gilmore is one of his favorite his favorite movie of Adam Sandler's. And it's my favorite movie as well. I think all hockey fans will like Happy Gilmore. It's one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. I can't wait for Happy Gilmore 2 to come out on Netflix next Friday. It's going to be a great movie, just like the first one was. Again, one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies to watch. And hopefully James Higgins will make his debut against the Washington Capitals. For those who haven't seen Happy Gilmore, it's about a hockey player who chases dreams of, obviously playing hockey, of course, because he has a passion for hockey. But then he hears about his grandma losing her house, and so this pro golfer, retired golfer, I should say, Chubbs, which is the character that Carl Weathers plays. If you guys don't know who Carl Weathers is, he did play on the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He also played in the Rocky movie. He played Apollo Creed in Rocky with Sylvester Stallone. He played Chubbs in Happy Gilmore, and so he recruits Happy Gilmore to play in this golf tournament, and he rejects it at first, but then when he tells him that it's about the money, and then that's why he joins the tour. And so he joins the tour so he can win his grandma some money. And then there's this other pro golfer, Shooter McGavin, who doesn't like him, doesn't want him in the tournament. And so he goes up against him. and then he eventually wins the tournament. So that's basically what the movie is about. For more in-depth about the movie, you guys can look this up. I just gave you a short summary of what the movie is about. It's a great movie. You guys should watch it if you have not seen it already. And again, can't wait for the second one to come out on Netflix. But anyway, going back to the hockey news. So yeah, Bruins Capitals, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Potential James Hagen's debut. Alex Ovechkin, the NHL's all-time goal scorer. He's got 897 goals now. He's going to hit 900. This is his last season, or possibly his last season in the NHL. And I'm predicting that he'll get somewhere between 920 and 930 goals. Somewhere between there is I think he's going to end with when it's all said and done. But if I had to say somewhere between 920 and 930, I'm going to go with 926. He'll retire. I'm predicting he'll retire with 926 goals in his career. We'll just have to see how that will go. And then the other game for this TNT doubleheader will be the LA Kings taking on the VGK Vegas Golden Knights at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Golden Knights obviously had a big splash in free agency, acquiring Mitch Marner from the Toronto Maple Leafs for, I think, did they trade him? I think it was for Nicholas Vaugh. I think it was either for Nicholas Vaugh or for a prospect that they traded him for. But obviously that was the big splash. Getting Mitch Marner from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Mitch Marner will be making his Golden Knights debut. And of course, the Golden Knights are arguably the most hated team in the NHL. So I'm pretty sure there's got to be some fans hoping to see the Golden Knights not succeed, not make another playoff run, because the Golden Knights are, again, arguably the most hated team. But we'll just have to see how Mitch Marner's debut goes for the VGK Vegas Golden Knights. Can't wait for that game. And I'll be watching it because obviously Mitch Marner is one of my favorite players to watch. And even though he's not on the Blackhawks, I would love to watch him on the Golden Knights playing with Jack Eichel on that first line. And then we got the first Wednesday night hockey on Sportsnet on October 8th. Got the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Original six matchup right there. Two teams with a lot of history against each other. And then another team that also has a lot of history against each other. Or two teams that have history against each other as well. In the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Battle of Alberta. Right there. So that will be the two games coming on Wednesday night hockey on Sportsnet. And then we got our first hockey night in Canada on Saturday, October 11th, which will be the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Detroit Red Wings at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, the original six matchup. And then we got the Kachuk Bowl as the Ottawa Senators coming to Sunrise, Florida to take on the Florida Panthers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then we got another original six matchup in the Montreal Canadiens taking on my Chicago Blackhawks at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That is the Blackhawks home opener, and I can't wait for that game. Hopefully Frank Nazar puts on another great performance against Montreal, because last season, I should say, man, oh man, what a game that was. And I'm talking about the Ivan Demidov debut. He had a goal and assist, and then Frank Nazar, I think, had a 2-point performance as well, and he had the shootout game-winning goal in the Blackhawks' last game of the season last year against the Montreal Canadiens. So that was just a great game to watch. NHL did upload this to their YouTube channel. They uploaded the quote-unquote full game. And I said full game in quotes because it's not actually the full game. It's an hour video, but they cut out some parts of the game. So they upload that on YouTube. I will put the link in the description for you guys to watch. It was a great game. It was a great game. I enjoyed it as a Blackhawks fan. That felt like a playoff game to us Blackhawks fans. You get an original six matchup between the Hawks and the Habs. You got Ivan Demidov making his NHL debut, a player that all Blackhawks fans wanted to see in a Blackhawks sweater. Fortunately, didn't happen. But he had himself a great game. Frank Nazar had the better game, though, getting the shootout game winner. Absolutely owning the Habs in that one, and I hope to see another great performance from him in the home opener. Then we got the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Edmonton Oilers at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Vander Kane on his hometown team, because he's from Vancouver. He's a Vancouver native, going up against his former team that he helped led to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals in the Edmonton Oilers at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And before this, there'll be two afternoon games on Sportsnet for that day, with the LA Kings taking on the Winnipeg Jets at 12:30 p.m. Central Time. And then we got the St. Louis Blues taking on the Calgary Flames at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then we get our first prime Monday Night Hockey of the 2025-26 NHL season. This will be the second season of prime Monday Night Hockey. Of course, all of these games will be on Amazon Prime for Canadians only. And this will be on October 13th, which is actually Thanksgiving in Canada. So I did not know this, or I probably didn't know this, because last year when they had this, it was Thanksgiving in Canada in October, and usually it's Thanksgiving in November. I'm American, and I'm still kind of new to the fact that Canadians have Thanksgiving in October and not in November like the Americans do it. But hey, you learn something new every day, and I learned that. That's a new fact for me, mostly because, again, American, and didn't know that until now. But anyway, we got the Detroit Red Wings taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time in the original six matchup. And then we got the St. Louis Blues taking on the Vancouver Canucks at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And then I should mention the NHL bringing back the Frozen Frenzy. NHL Frozen Frenzy Day will be on October 28th. For those who don't know what that is a day where all 32 NHL teams are in action. 16 games, all 32 teams. It's going to be a heck of a day. Always enjoy the Frozen Frenzies, and they'll be talking about this on ESPN. ESPN will have their little show of the NHL Frozen Frenzy. You can also catch this on ESPN Plus and obviously NHL Network. All 32 teams will be in action as well on October 11th, but that's on a Saturday, and October 28th is on a Tuesday. They don't like to have the Frozen Frenzies on weekends. They usually like to have it on the weekdays. But let's get into some other top NHL games to watch for this upcoming season. So on October 9th, we got the New York Islanders taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Potential Matthew Schaefer debut. Of course, Matthew Schaefer was drafted first overall by the Islanders in 2025 NHL Draft. And I don't care what team you like, every hockey fan is going to be cheering for Matthew Schaefer. He has the potential. He has the work ethic. He has the grit. He has the grind. He has the hustle. And I know that this kid is going to do great in the NHL in his first year in the NHL. And I can't wait to see him make his debut against the Penguins. He had 22 points in 17 games played with the Erie Otters in the OHL, 7 goals, 15 assists, 22 points in 17 games with the Erie Otters in the OHL. He did miss some time playing hockey of late due to a collarbone injury playing for Team Canada in the 2025 World Juniors on December 27, 2024. But I know Matthew Schaefer is going to do great in his first year, and just everything that he's been to up until this point. Had the injury, had the passing of his mother, and now he is a NHL pro. So it's been an emotional ride for Matthew Schaefer. It's been an up and down ride for Matthew Schaefer. But in the end, he's going to make his mom proud, and he's going to have a heck of a first year in the NHL. And I can't wait to see he'll make his NHL debut against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Islanders will also be playing the Capitals the game after that. So going to be playing your first 2 games of your career against Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin, 2 legends, 2 future Hall of Famers. That says something right there. That's going to be an unreal moment for Matthew Schaefer. Another game to watch, we got the Florida Panthers taking on the Boston Bruins on October 21st. Brad Marchand will be returning to Boston for the first time with the Florida Panthers. He was traded to the Panthers on March 7th by the Bruins at the NHL trade deadline last season, and he's going to be making his debut in Boston as a Florida Panther. The 2 teams did play in Boston 4 days later, but Brad Marchand didn't play due to an injury. I think it was a low body injury. The point being is he didn't play. Would have loved to see him play. We all know Brad Marchand likes to troll the fans, troll the media. He did practice with the Bruins in Boston with the Panthers. I mean, not the Bruins. He did practice with the Panthers in Boston. So it kind of did seem like he was going to play against the Bruins, but he was injured. He couldn't play. But again, just kind of trolling the fans. We all know that's what Brad Marchand likes to do. He has that personality of trolling the fans, trolling the media, getting everybody to see this is going to happen, but yet it doesn't happen. So he's a funny guy to be around. He's a funny guy to be around. That's, all I can say. He did play 16 seasons with the Bruins. He was captain of the Bruins for 2 of those seasons. He had 976 points in 1,090 games played with the Bruins, 422 goals, 554 assists for 976 points in 1,090 games played with the Bruins. He's 4th in games played and goals. He's 5th in points, and he's 6th in assists. He won the Stanley Cup with the Bruins in 2011. And, of course, obviously won the 2nd Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers last season, where he had 20 points in 23 playoff games, 10 goals, 10 assists for 20 points in 23 playoff games. I still think that Brad Marchand should have been the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I mean, come on now. I think about 50% of the NHL fans thought that Brad Marchand should have won the Conn Smythe Trophy, but ended up going to Sam Bennett. Now let's talk about another game in October 30th. My Chicago Blackhawks taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Jonathan Tage, first game against the Blackhawks. He hasn't played in the NHL since April 13th of 2023. He's been out due to health issues. He went on a healing journey in India, and he took some time off. He missed the past 2 seasons. Now he's back in action with his hometown team, the Winnipeg Jets. He signed with the Jets on July 1st, played 15 seasons with the Blackhawks, in which he had 883 points in 1,067 games played, 372 goals, 511 assists for 883 points in 1,067 games played, 5th in games played, 6th in goals and points, and 8th in assists. And he was named one of the top 100 greatest players during the NHL Centennial Celebration in 2017. And the game that will have a bigger impact on this than this game in October will be the game on January 19th, where Taser makes his return to Chicago at the United Center for the first time as an opponent. Going to be playing for his hometown Winnipeg Jets. And man, oh man, would that be an emotional game for all Blackhawks fans. Going to be just like the game where Patrick Kane returned to Chicago for the first time as a member of the Detroit Red Wings. That was back in the 2023-24 NHL season. This is going to be an emotional game with Taser coming back to Chicago. And I miss Taser. I think all Hawks fans miss Taser playing for the Hawks and what he did, the accolades that he had with the Hawks, like everything he did with the Hawks. We are going to miss him. 3-time Stanley Cup champion with the Hawks. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2010 as playoff MVP. And man, oh man, would there be a lot of tears in the house at the UC come January 19, 2026. And then another game after those two games, 2025 NHL Global Series in Sweden. This will be between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators, a rematch of the 2017 Stanley Cup Final, where the Penguins beat the Predators to win their second consecutive Stanley Cup that year. They shut out the Predators 2-0, and Patrick Holmquist had the game-winning goal, bouncing the puck off of Pekka Rinne and into the net for the Penguins score their first goal of the game in Game 6. That was late in the third period when that happened, and then Carl Hagelin with the empty netter to seal the deal. But anyway, these games will be on November 14th and 16th at Avicii Arena in Stockholm, Sweden. The 14th is on a Friday and the 16th is on a Sunday. And take a look at the Swedish players on both teams. The Pittsburgh Penguins have Erik Karlsson and Mikael Rakell. Nashville Predators have Philip Forsberg, Andreas England, and Adam Wilsby. The first game will be at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and the second game is at 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Again, these games are in Sweden, so the times in America is going to be early. So again, the first game, which will be on November 14th, that will be at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And the second game is on the 16th of November at 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time. 14th on a Friday, 16th on a Sunday. And then we got the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Winnipeg Jets on November 21st. Nikolai Ehlers will be making his return to Winnipeg as a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. He signed a 6-year, $51 million contract deal with them in free agency. He had 63 points in 69 regular season games with the Jets last season. 24 goals, 39 assists for 63 points in 69 regular season games. Played 10 NHL seasons, all of them being with the Jets, in which he had 520 points in 674 regular season games, 225 goals, 295 assists for 520 points in 674 regular season games with the Jets, 21 points in 45 playoff games, 9 goals, 12 assists for 21 points in 45 playoff games with the Winnipeg Jets. And going to be another great tribute for the Winnipeg Jets to put on for Nikolai Ehlers in his return to Winnipeg after 10 NHL seasons with the team. And then on November 22nd, we got a Stanley Cup final rematch between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. They faced each other in the Stanley Cup final the past two seasons, 2024 and 2025. And this will be the first time the Oilers will return to Emirates Bank Arena since losing in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final, where Sam Reinhart had a 4-goal game. And I'm pretty sure that name will haunt Canadiens fans and especially Oilers fans, because he had the game-winning goal in the 2024 Stanley Cup Final, and now in the 2025 Stanley Cup Final, he has a 4-goal game. So a lot of Oilers fans are not going to like him. The Panthers, fun fact, the Panthers have won the past 4 regular season meetings against the Oilers. These two teams will also play at Rogers Place in Edmonton on March 19th, where Sam Reinhart could be getting a lot of boos in Edmonton. He is Canadian, though. He is Canadian, but again, playing with the Florida Panthers, just dominating against the Edmonton Oilers in the past 2 Stanley Cup Finals. And then on January the 2nd of 2026, we got the NHL Winter Classic between the New York Rangers and the Florida Panthers. First of 2 outdoor games in Florida. Of course, the Bruins and Lightning will be playing the 2026 NHL Stadium Series at Raymond James Stadium, which is home to the NFL's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for the Winter Classic game, this game will be played at Lone Depot Park in Miami, which is home to the MLB's Miami Marlins. And I don't know how I feel about a Winter Classic in Florida. I don't know how the ice is going to help hold up in Florida, because usually in Florida it's hot, it's humid, but I'm pretty sure the NHL will figure out a way. I mean, that's all I can say. I don't. When I first heard about the Winter Classic and the Stadium Series being in Florida, I didn't know how I felt about it. I didn't think how well the ice would do. How the conditions of the ice will be. Will it be melting every few minutes, or like how's this going to be? How's the ice going to hold up there? So that's just my concern about that. But it should be a great Winter Classic for sure between the Rangers and Panthers. And then the Stadium Series between the Bruins and Lightning. Then on January 23rd, we got the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, the big storyline for this game, Mitch Marner returning to Toronto for the first time as an opponent. He's going to be playing for the VGK Vegas Golden Knights. Traded to the Golden Knights on July 1st and signed an 8-year, $12 million contract deal with the team afterwards. He had a career-high 102 points in 81 regular season games with the Maple Leafs last season. 27 goals, 75 assists for a career-high 102 points in 81 regular season games. He played 9 seasons with the Maple Leafs in which he had 741 points in 657 games played with the Leafs. 221 goals, 520 assists for 741 points in 657 regular season games with the Leafs. He's 4th in assists. He's 5th in points. It's going to be an emotional game for Mitch Marner and for the fans. For Mitch Marner because he grew up a Leafs fan. He is an Ontario native. He grew up watching the Leafs. He always dreamed of playing for the Leafs. He got the chance to live out that childhood dream playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He even said it himself. He doesn't take that opportunity for granted. And he was happy. He was grateful to be playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he was emotional in his last game with the Leafs, which was, of course, was Game 7 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs last year against the Florida Panthers. He was emotional in his post-game interview. And he said he was grateful to be playing for the Maple Leafs and never taking that opportunity for granted. So it's going to be an emotional game for Mitch Marner, for the fans, because they love Mitch Marner during his time in Toronto. They cheer for Mitch Marner during his time in Toronto. So it's going to be an emotional game for the fans as well, and a game that I'm looking forward to watching as a Mitch Marner fan. And then on March 18th, we got the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Anaheim Ducks. This is a big storyline for this game. Trevor Zegras returned to Anaheim. Hopefully it doesn't end up with the Carter Gauthier situation in Philadelphia. Because, of course, Carter Gauthier drafted by the Flyers. The only difference was he didn't want to play for the Flyers. He was drafted by the Flyers. He ended up not playing for them and played for the Ducks to start his NHL career. Flyers fans didn't like that, calling him a quitter and saying a lot of profanity words against Carter Gauthier in his return to Philadelphia. Hopefully Trevor Zegras doesn't get that same treatment in Anaheim. I just hope he doesn't, because with the Carter Gauthier situation, all the profanity that Flyers fans were chanting at him in his return to Philadelphia last season and calling him a quitter, calling him an a-hole, and it was a hostile environment for Carter Gauthier in his return to Philadelphia last year. Hopefully Trevor Zegras does not get that same treatment in his return to Anaheim. But he was drafted by the Ducks in 2019 NHL Draft. He played 5 seasons with the Ducks before heading over to Philadelphia. He had 186 points in 268 games played with the Ducks, 67 goals, 119 assists for 186 points in 268 games played with the Ducks. And I hope, and if you're a Flyers fan, I bet you guys are happy that John Tortorella is still not coaching your team, because John Tortorella, I think, in my opinion, he hates Trevor Zegras. Only reason why I said that is because you should go back to the play where he lifted the puck over the net and passed to Sonny Milano. That was the highlight reel play. It was an unreal play from Trevor Zegras. John Tortorella was not a fan of that. He was not a fan of that. He said it ruined the game for hockey, and these Michigan-style goals, these Michigan-style plays shouldn't happen in hockey. Those are his words. That's what he said. He's not a fan of Trevor Zegras. He hates Trevor Zegras just because of that reason I just said, at least in my opinion. Other people probably might not view it that way, but from my perspective, I think he hates them. And I think Flyers fans are so happy that John Tortorella is not coaching the team, not coaching the Flyers, because that means that Trevor Zegras and Matt Mitchell can do as many Michigans as they want. In fact, I did see Matvey Michkov do a Michigan goal, I think in a Russian tournament. I think it was a tournament in Russia. This is on TikTok. I think Bar Down posted this video. But Matvey Michkov did a Michigan goal, and I'm like, that's going to be him and Trevor Zegras for this upcoming season. So can't wait for that. And then the honorable mention, the Mikko Rantanen return to Carolina. Dallas Stars will be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. The only reason why I said this was the honorable mention is because Mikko Rantanen did not like it in Carolina. He did not want to play in Carolina. He said himself there was 3 teams, like in his trade with the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche sent him to Carolina, but he said there's 3 teams that he wanted to play for, and the Hurricanes was not one of them. So he didn't like it in Carolina. He wasn't doing well in Carolina. He put up 6 points in 13 games played with the Hurricanes last season. 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points in 13 games with the Hurricanes last season. And then the Hurricanes say, fine, you don't like it here? That's cool. We're going to trade you to the Dallas Stars. And he ended up getting traded to the Dallas Stars. And he likes it there better than he does in Carolina. And I'm pretty sure the Hurricanes fans are going to be booing him when he comes back to Carolina. So we'll just have to see how that will go. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio platform, make sure to follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. I will see you guys next time for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Again, once the regular season starts, or even once the preseason starts, we will go back to our regular routine of putting out every episode every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We just got to get through this tough and boring off season, of course. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time for another episode of Hockey Talk TG podcast, and take care.